First off, Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to thank you for sitting in for our chairperson this evening. You have all the commissioners that you're going to have. You should feel free to start tonight's activities.
All right. Well, we are gathered here today for the Historic District Commission meeting. It's about 7:33 on Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. We have a quorum for our meeting, and we have two applications before us, but our first order of business is to approve the minutes for the September 7th and October 6th meetings. So let's take them in order. Does anybody have any additions, corrections they'd like to make to the September 7th meetings? And if not, minutes, excuse me, and if not, I'll be happy to entertain a motion to approve them.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The minutes for September 7th are approved. Next are the minutes for October 6th. Are there any additions or amendments to those minutes, excuse me? Well, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the October 6th minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alex seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Just point out, I was at the Michigan Municipal League meeting, so I could not attend.
Is that shown in the minutes?
It says I'm absent.
Okay, all right.
So I wanted to make sure you realized why I didn't vote.
Okay, all righty. Well, the October 6th minutes are approved unanimously. So we move to our first item of business, which is a review of an extension to the cellular tower and the placement of a generator on 10 Mile Road next to Rackham Golf Course. Are there representatives for that?
This is an out-of-town applicant, and they just basically, we would go ahead, but you can put any conditions on this as far as screening, sound, noise abatement. But otherwise, the tower extension, which we are not hearing tonight, we are only hearing the generator tonight. The tower's been pulled until February. So, because that there are going to be people here for it. So, this is strictly for the generator. So having said that, you would proceed like you normally would. To the extent that I can answer the questions, I will. I've placed before you suggested motion for this with the understanding is that the generator is going to go there, but you do have some say into how it's treated, which would be, any type of protections, fencing, around it, inside the compound, screening, noise abatement, that type of thing. And even though it's right next to 696, there is a hole of a golf course right there, and if that kicks on, that's substantive, as far as size. So having said that, Mr. Chair, if you would like to go ahead, or would you like me to explain what it is that they're doing and then proceed from there? Whatever your pleasure is.
Well, maybe we could ask some questions about the materials that are submitted. I think it's pretty straightforward from
Yes.
the materials. One question that I have is that the drawings appear to be in conflict with each other. So, for example, if you look at sheet number C1 of the large drawings, it shows,
Are you on the AT&T drawing?
yeah,
Okay.
yes. It shows the placement of the generator close to the gate, or I should say, there's something being placed close to the gate, and then there's the generator sort of outside the building. So that's one drawing. And then, I'm trying to find the other drawing that shows a difference. Here we go. So this is on, gosh, I don't know, the pages aren't numbered, but it's in the packet that you sent us.
All the
That-
way
Are you
down
talking
in the
about
corner, there'll be a
G1?
sheet number.
Pardon?
Are Are you talking about sheet G1
C1,
in this?
yeah.
It's about the third or fourth in.
Okay.
Okay. So you can see where they show the placement of the generator and then something that's over by the gate. And they actually indicate in there that trees have to be removed, which indeed they would. There's some trees there that would have to be taken out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one drawing. And then in this packet of drawings,
This one?
yeah.
That's a different set. That's the tower drawings.
Well, be that as it may, they're showing in the section on electrical notes, another unit that's installed by the base of the tower and what they refer to in some other drawing as an ice bridge that connects to the tower.
Okay, this is pulled for tonight.
Okay,
So we'll consider this plan, which you should hold on to, and we'll hold on to that for, till February.
okay. Well, I guess the question I would put to them is, why do they have to place that one facility by the fence and tear out the trees?
That I can't answer for you, other than that's the location that best suits their purposes, and it's right next to the AT&T meter disconnect. It's shown right there. They have a bank of electrical, so it goes to the disconnect. It's 3 feet from the disconnect board.
Yeah.
It's already there.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I noticed is it partially, blocks the entrance as well. It extends into that opening for the gate.
Very likely, we would have them shift that around when it comes to construction of it, but they can't block the gate that goes into the carrier equipment shelter either. So they may end up sliding that down a bit,
Uh-huh.
unless there's a code that requires 3 feet, which our electrical inspector will catch.
Yeah. Okay. And the trees, I wonder if the trees actually have to be removed, or if there's some way that they could place that so they don't have to remove the trees.
It's possible, and we can do an on-site with them when it comes time to do that.
Okay,
And you can actually include that in the motion to see if the trees can be saved.
okay,
But the trees are within the enclosure.
okay, right. Oh, well, does that mean that it's sort of off limits for us, or,
It does, but it doesn't. It does in respect that they can put the generator there, and there's not a whole lot that we have to say about it. But if we can do that, they may end up saving themselves an awful lot by moving it and such, because again, if it's the pleasure of the Historic District Commission, which I suggest it should be, to require sound baffling and additional screening so that that's not visible from any side, then it may help them to move that to a different location where it would be easier to do that rather than try to work around trees.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it could just as easily be put on the other side of the control panel.
Well, that would be the thing, and provided that there's no infrastructure underground that prevents them from getting to the electrical disconnect.
Okay,
I mean, nothing would prevent that. It would just have to be the depth of what it is.
right. Well, those are the questions that leaped to mind for me when I went through the materials with regard to the generator, the stuff on the ground.
We can get clarification from that for them.
Okay,
So, what you can do is you can include any questions, or like you could add into the sample motion that you would like to see them move it away from the existing trees rather than cut down any existing trees, and that you can do.
Okay.
There's a fair amount of room. If you take a look behind you on, let me get this here, and you see what it is, they're proposing over here.
Right.
The one generator's here already, this one would be here, the disconnect boxes are right here. So that's kind of where they're at with this. They would put it underneath here. Actually, if they get it under the tree, that would actually help with the noise abatement. I don't know whether it would help with the life of the tree, but anything that's within this gated portion is considered part of the compound.
yeah. Yeah, I actually drove by there today. I drove into the
Yeah,
parking
it's-
lot, so I
it's-
looked in.
It's pretty much wide open,
Yeah.
so.
Well, yes,
Yeah, nearby equipment and storage are in enclosed areas with forms of screening. I request that the generator and supporting equipment be in an acceptable to the city planning director covered enclosure at the height so that the generator, transformers, connecting boxes, and ground wires are not seen to the public. So I'm concerned about not only just the coverage, but the height.
Absolutely.
So I mean,
Yeah.
I'll give you some, and this is a common issue even in non-historic districts.
Absolutely.
And the tendency of the contractor is to do nothing, and the community has to fight to say, cover it, and then you get natural grass out there as their form of coverage. Now, if that box was put on their property, they would not agree to that.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that if you're looking at the suggestion that there be some kind of fencing and/or sound baffle that goes with it, and that can be to exceed the height of the fence. It won't be taller than 6 feet, and that's typically what a screen fence would come up to. But if your motion includes up to or surpassing the height, you could do that,
Yeah, I would like to actually see it.
so.
This is not residential.
No, and this is, and even though you do have 696 there, you do have some noise, and granted, it might not be louder than 696 at rush hour, but if something happens and it goes on in the middle of the night, you'll hear it. And my concern would, of course, be for anybody on Ludlow or Scotia, even though they have a right to hear it, we want to mitigate any kind of inconvenience to our residents on Scotia or Ludlow.
Well, and we
Which would
also
be
have.
affected, and Oak Park, yeah.
We also have a golf course there that.
Yeah.
It should basically complement.
I do have
yeah.
some questions. Hank, what is it exactly that allows them this extension? Was it granted when they made the original applications?
No,
or-
the extension, which we're not talking about.
Okay, well, then the generator,
That's part of the Michigan compiled laws that they have for wireless communications. It's part of the same thing that preempted our control over the public safety tower. So it's similar to that, only it's phrased differently, and it's been reviewed by our city attorney. So we can't tell them no. Now, they can go up to like 112 feet with this tower, which is where they're going with
when
this.
they can go, who granted them that?
The state of Michigan,
So anybody that builds a tower can make it 112 feet?
pretty much.
We tried to negotiate about 10 years ago with the utilities, including placement of the boxes all over there the way they are. And we thought we had an agreement. When it got to the legislature, the public side disappeared and the utility side stayed in the way they originally had it. So we have virtually no control.
Right, the short answer is our control is to the mitigation of any sight or sound because it's a historic district. So without the historic district, we wouldn't even have that.
Okay. Looking through the materials, I noticed that the generator is a diesel-powered generator. Do you know the size of the fuel tanks that will be on site?
I do not.
I'd like to know the size of them and whether or not there's any fuel spill mitigation that's part of this, because whether or not the fuel has to be changed out, I know that generally liquid fuels don't last forever. I found it kind of unusual that it was even a diesel power generator. I thought that most of them are natural gas, but I'd like to know how much fuel is going to be stored on the site, whether or not we have control over that, whether or not there's any mitigation measures that we have control over
The answer
spill mitigation and so on.
The answer is no. But our public safety department is aware of this, and they're aware of what's going in. I had a conversation with our chief today, and told him what was going on, and just wanted to verify if he had any concerns, and I asked if they had concerns if they decided to screen the whole thing for security reasons, and he said no. He said whatever they need to do there, it'd be better if they had a screen around the unit, which is what we're looking at, rather than,
Well, I want to know specifically whether or not they are allowed to store this fuel on site and how much is going to be stored there.
there's no
Because,
storage tank shown on this plan.
okay, well, I don't know how much generating you can do with a 4-cylinder diesel generator that's set up to run this tower with all this electronics on it without a significant amount of fuel in it. I mean, I don't know, and it's not provided. They just say, when I look at the specifications, they say it's a Kohler 4-cylinder inline diesel engine is all that they say. And you're right, they don't give a lot of information about it. I don't know if it's intentionally or it's just overlooked or.
No,
But
they've given us basic information, and that's what we're gonna get. It's unfortunate, but there's very little that we can do about this. So,
Well, maybe there's something we can do about the storage of the fuel. We have to allow them the ability to install a generator there, but can they put in anything that they want to? And we have no say
they can
over
put
it?
in what facilitates the use and the function of this tower.
Okay, well, I'm not happy with the amount of information that's here.
Okay?
And
Here's what I can tell you, that
And I'm not satisfied that it's done in a way that protects does that property belong to the city, and do they lease it, or do they
it
own it?
belongs to the city of Detroit, and they lease it from the city of Detroit, and they pay the city of Detroit.
Can I put a diesel generator on my property with
You know the answer.
unspecified
You know the
amount of,
answer to that.
what is that?
You know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer to
You
it.
can't put it on your property without specifying it. But this
Well,
is nothing that we have control over because this is regulated.
Well, I know we have to allow them to have a generator there.
Can you check with the state agencies to find out what the requirement is for fueling that and how that's?
I can check whatever you like. The
Because,
shot clock on this is different than the shot clock on the tower. So I have a little bit more time with this than I do with the tower. The tower shot clock would have been up after today's meeting for the tower, but they asked for it to be pulled until February. But the shot clock on this, I can make the February meeting with this. If you want to deny it and have them come back with more information, I would not table this because they are out of state. And then just say, look, you either have to get somebody to appear or you have to get some more information, which you can do. But at that February meeting, you will have to take action or it's just gonna go in there. And there won't be anything we can do. But we can do that.
well, the problem is going to be that you already have a discharge site at that building halfway down, or contaminated site halfway down between Ludlow and 10 Mile Road on Scotia. It's marked on maps from years ago with storage. And we can, at least in this instance, get the federal government to look at how they are properly handling the storage.
You can, my suggestion would be to you would be to vote this down and then have them reapply for the next meeting.
With information on how they're going to fuel and if they will have storage tanks and what the.
I'm just not happy with a liquid fuel like that without any information, And I understand that we have
get
to
it,
allow
but
them
But I also know what's gonna happen, but you can vote it down and let's get the information, let's get them back here and see if they can show up.
just to let you know, the only thing that I found in here was in this packet over here, the big one, where it gives the engine specification, says Kohler diesel, and then it gives a model number, 4-cycle turbocharged 4-in-line, and it gives some other specification, then it says fuel, and it says fuel supply line, maximum fuel pump. They don't say anything about the size of the tank, and they just say that it's a recommended fuel is a number 2 ultra-low sulfur diesel is what's specified in the,
Again,
And
I
the
mean, I'm
information.
not here to defend what they're doing, I'm here to facilitate the meeting. If you want to have this and you want to vote it down and then have them come back, I'm happy to have that conversation with them tomorrow. But I will send out a notice of denial if that's what you want to do.
I'm just saying there's insufficient information.
That, you can make that part of the motion, say there's insufficient information.
Well,
You absolutely can.
I'd like to give Robert and Michal a chance to make some observations, and then we could talk about possible motions. Robert, do you have anything to?
I have a question. I was trying to find out what the decibel output of this would be in operation. I found nothing.
Again, that's part of the information packet that they've submitted. Their contention in the conversations that I've had is that it's no louder than the traffic on 696, if we don't have a meter reading for what that is. So if you'd like, then we could add that on and find out what it is, but I'd like to get all of your questions and concerns so that I can get it to them, so that they can give us the information.
That's all I have.
Okay. Michal?
I don't have anything to add.
Are you open for public participation on this?
Bill will get the,
Yeah. I'm just making some notes. Hang on. Yes, I think we're through with our questions for the commissioner, members of the commission. So yes, we're open for public. Please, I'll tell you what, walk up to the podium, and if you could give your name and address.
Good evening, everybody. Jay Schwartz, 10014 Ludlow, since January of 1965. I am also a degreed electrical engineer. I am also the owner of a backup power generator at my house, natural gas fired. And in terms of noise abatement, I completely support this group getting information on what is their noise abatement plan. Now, here's an observation which many people who don't live on Ludlow are, which, okay, I'm dropping into engineering mode now. Under certain meteorological conditions, the noise, in layman's terms, in plain language, blows from 696 up Ludlow Avenue. You can actually hear that there is an increase in noise level. So if this thing is firing off and it's a diesel powered, that noise, unless there is noise abatement, it's going to blow right over the golf course because there's nothing to mitigate that noise coming over the golf course. So that's item number one. So I completely support having complete noise mitigation, and exactly how they're going to do that, that has to be a TBD item. In terms of fuel tank placement, as again, this is a matter of public safety. Where's it going to be? How big is it going to be? My generator is natural gas. I don't have that problem. But, okay, what kind of tank are they going to put in? What are the specifications? And you're right, fuel deteriorates over time. So what are they going to do to mitigate a spill or a rusty tank or something to prevent a fuel leak that now we've got a hazardous material situation on our hands or a fire situation? These are legitimate concerns. I would also put in there, since generators have to be tested regularly, once a week. You can't just put them in and be done with them. They have to be run at least once a week and it's recommended for at least 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Mine runs 20 minutes a week, every Wednesday at 12:30. So, most of the people are gone. It's not on the weekends. It hasn't been a problem in the years that I've had it. That there be some requirement, again, that yes, they can test it, but it has to be during the business day when the minimum amount of people are going to be disturbed. So these are some of the concerns that I have, especially since I'm almost, not quite, due north of where this thing would be. It's almost directly due south of my house, and I can see the building from my house. So, there's going to be nothing mitigating the noise. There's nothing in there. So whatever noise mitigation plan they have, either got to send it straight up, or unfortunately, and I'm not trying to dump it on Oak Park, send it across the freeway. Those are basically their options. Or you can't send it to the zoo because you'll get them all upset, and then you go to the west, you'll have the people on Scotia upset. It's a no-win situation. All you can do is try and mitigate the noise straight up, which is, from an engineering point of view, doable. So those are my major concerns, and it's just out of curiosity of my own, has nothing to do with here, but why didn't they think about this when they put this thing in? This is like bolting on emergency power 20 years after the fact. I've been involved in emergency communications now since the 1970s. It's like, huh? So, oh well. Anyway, those are just my concerns, and I would hope that this group would, make them a requirement, if possible, when they come back to, as Mr. Berry said, reject it tonight. Here's your list of things that have to be done: hazardous material mitigation, noise mitigation, fuel storage. How are you going to do that? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments or questions? Well, let's close the public discussion part of this. I think we're ready now for a motion. And I am inclined to suggest that we take your observations and incorporate them with some of the questions that have come up here as a set of, I guess you could say, questions or items of additional information we would like. So one would be to have their plan for noise mitigation. And that is, I would say the spec that you suggest, Hank, for the highest sound insulation available. I think we could sort of combine those and ask them to present a plan for noise mitigation that would attain the highest level of sound insulation possible. So that would be item number one. Item number two would be a plan to screen the cabinet and all of the accessory components from view, and also include sound baffling in that screening. So it would ideally perhaps give us like a double layer of sound abatement. Then we need to know where they're going to store the diesel, because they don't indicate that on the plan. In fact, they don't even indicate routing for lines, fuel lines. And
I would also say that there needs to be some, I would like to know if there's any type of leak or spillage.
Hazard mitigation plan?
yeah,
Or not even a plan, but also some sort of secondary, I mean, I see these fuel tanks at places, like these big round fuel cylinders, and you'll see around them like some sort of spill
containment.
barrier, so it can only go within a certain area and it can't go out any further. Or whether or not there needs to be some sort of barrier in the soil so it doesn't go into the soil and create some sort of hazardous cleanup in the future that's really problematic.
Well, they'll get all of your concerns from this, once I get the motion and it passes. That'll go out to them tomorrow. They knew that the meeting was tonight. I even sent them notice in certified mail, and I've got the receipt back for it. They didn't send anybody, so to the extent that nobody's comfortable on it, you can deny it based on lack of information, and then I'll ask them to come back in the February meeting. Our shot clock's still good on this one.
So we don't need to really craft this into a motion, other than maybe just
Yes, you
craft.
do, you gotta deny it,
Yes, we can deny it.
But we
based on
should-
lack of information.
Based on
and I
lack
can
But we
send-
should also then indicate the type of information that we want so that it's fair to them.
the reason that I would include it in the motion is that you're substantiating the reason for denial right in the motion, and then it would be hard pressed for them to argue, well, this is just a generic reason for denial, and then, you made up other stuff. I'd rather have it incorporated into that to reflect the opinion of the public and the board. That way it's a little bit more defensible, and it's a little bit,
So do we want to try and craft a motion together, and then one
Well,
person can
yes.
put it
Let's,
forward?
I'll tell you what, let's finish compiling the issues
Okay.
about which we want to have more information. Then I think we can have the motion to deny, and then Hank has is compiling a list of the issues that we want to have.
Yeah.
addressed.
Impact on Detroit Zoo animals, they are always concerned about sound. Is this an emergency generator? Is it an ongoing generator? And has it been shared with the Detroit Zoo?
they're both City of Detroit properties. So, I mean, the assumption would be is that one talks to the other, although you and I both know that that's not always the
I
case.
think it would be
So-
fair,
But, yeah, but they noticed, they also got notice of
the
this.
Detroit Zoo did?
Yeah, they also got notice.
Do you want to include something in about, ask for alternate plans for removal of the trees if they exist?
We can ask for whatever you would like and get them, even if
And I
the
know that
answer is
came
they
up-
don't plan to do
This
that.
discussion, I mean, if it can be accommodated, you would think they want to be good neighbors and accommodate what they can if it's possible. I mean,
Again, this is the tower company, this isn't the City of Detroit, so the tower company realistically, they do this and move on. You know what I mean? So they're gonna be on to the next one, so I would be more concerned with what the City of Detroit would do rather than what the tower company does, because the City of Detroit's gonna own this property unless it's changing hands in some way, shape, or form. So,
Well, let's continue with regard to the
Absolutely.
items about that we want additional information. The last one that was pointed out to us is the testing plan, assuming that the testing schedule and plan for the generator. So,
I would
We-
like to know the usage, how frequently that generator is going to be used.
well, it's an emergency backup generator. They make that clear in the
Yeah.
documents. So, and this was pointed out during public comments. I mean, why they didn't think about that before is a mystery, but, it's kind of like a add-on. But
right.
I think maybe the way to proceed is to have a motion to deny based on insufficient information concerning the following topics.
That's exactly what you should do.
And then we can refer to the topics that we've already conveyed to you, Hank, if that would work for your
Yeah,
purposes.
I mean, I can there's not a problem. I mean, you can move to deny based on lack of information concerning the following items. One is the storage of the fuel and the type of containers that it'll be in. The second being any noise mitigation. The third being screening the cabinet and accessory components. The fourth being any routing for fuel lines or underground storage of tanks. Fifth would be a hazard mitigation plan. Six would be a plan for the trees and saving the trees where possible. And seven would be a testing plan. And that's That's what I have so far.
Okay.
On the screening, please indicate that the HDC would like all of the equipment screened, the height to cover all of the equipment.
Yeah.
So they don't get in the catch-22.
Okay, well, I think we have an approach.
Yep.
So we're ready for a motion to deny based on insufficient information regarding the topics that Hank just enumerated for us. So is somebody willing to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Say aye. Any
Thank you.
opposed? Okay, we're on to our next agenda item, which is the,
Hank, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
If they're just not satisfied with this denial and want to just walk away, where do they have to go to the state of Michigan and go through some sort of appeal procedure? Or is it just like they just march on the property and do whatever they want to and permits are granted, or?
No, they can appeal the decision of the Historic District Commission, but basically, we wouldn't issue a permit based on that. So if the generator requires a permit, which even though it's on the golf course and it's owned by the city of Detroit, does require our inspectors to look at it. So that would mean that we wouldn't be issuing a permit until we have the HDC approval.
But if this were denied and they felt that we were acting out of our bounds legally,
They could
where would they
apply-
go to,
They could go to the
state.
State Historic Preservation Board.
and they would be the body that would in essence overrule our decision?
It would be very unlikely. I mean, this decision based on it, what I see happening here, Steve, is I see us getting the information that's been asked for, and I expect we would see them back at the February meeting with that information.
Thank you.
thanks, Hank. Well, we're ready for our next item, which is a matter of review of a window replacement to the Neff residence at 26630 York Road.
Were you gonna make a presentation? For window control. Yeah. Were you gonna?
That we sent into the application.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
My name's Tim. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at Window Pro. So we're applying to have Mr. Neff's windows, which are original to the home, in need of dire replacement, replaced with a fiberglass window, as opposed to the requirements that you currently have, based on several items, but there's, so if you reviewed the packet, we're just asking for an approval for the project as is.
Do you have a picture of the house with the windows, the original windows?
I do, yeah.
Is it possible to see that?
Jeff, did you want me to go next, or did you wanna just continue without,
Oh,
Yeah,
up to you?
I think whatever is most informative.
Normally,
Actually-
what happens is that he does a presentation, the city will make some comments, and then at that point in time, we would go through the board.
Do the questions,
take
yeah.
Public participation. At any point in time that the board has questions, of course, they're welcome to ask this gentleman, questions as to what he might have,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, why don't we proceed that way? I think it'll be a little bit, we can get to all of the questions more
Then if he's got a
efficiently.
photo or something that helps, Jeff, get an idea as to what's going on. Basically, let me give you a little bit of history about this, because the project was started without any permits being pulled and without any Historic District Commission approval. So there we had two problems. One, if they would have come in and pulled the permit or attempted to pull a permit, they would have been notified that the property's in the historic district because it's completely flagged in our BS&A system that historic district properties have to at least cross my desk to find out whether or not they have to go to the Historic District Commission or its administrative approval. Because they're fiberglass windows and there's no demonstrating that that's the exact same dimensions between the rail styles, mutton bars, mutton patterns, or anything like that, it would automatically be sent by me to the Historic District Commission. So the windows would also have to be approved by the Historic District Commission because they're not a material that's consistent with the material on the original house. And then the other thing would be is that they have to be, you would have to go ahead not only and approve them, but they'd have to be inspected, and with no permit, there'd be nothing to trigger any of that. So that's the two flaws that we have in that. Having said that, so the stop work order was put on the property. We allowed them to mitigate by putting in insulation around it to try to stop some of the draft, with the understanding that there is some sense of urgency in getting something done for the homeowner, because he's got a breezeway, coming from this. And again, that's through no fault of ours. There should have been a permit pulled on that, but I'm not gonna beat that dead horse anymore. So, we all know where that's at. He has, what information would be helpful in ascertaining would be how many windows are being replaced, how many are partially installed now, how many are permanently installed yet, and how many are still in place and not yet removed. That kind of lets you know what options you may have available to you. Right off the top, the options is to have all these windows pulled out and replaced with wood windows, which would be within the purview of the Historic District Commission. The second option would be is to work with the windows that are already pulled and put in and allow those to be finished and installed. Again, provided that a level of satisfaction has been made to you that the rail styles and components, mountain bars are the same thickness and have the same general appearance from the street, or to whatever your satisfaction, your standards would be. Again, you need 4 votes tonight out of 5 people here in order to make this work. So that would be one of the things that has to happen. The third thing is that you could take a look at it and you could say, well, let's button up what's already in there. The windows that are gone or that are pulled, and that these windows are all part, some installed, as my understanding, are in a dumpster somewhere. So those are not going to be able to be reinstalled. So whatever the case may be, you're looking at new windows for this. If there are any windows that have not yet been removed from the property, you can review those on a standard where they would have to demonstrate those windows can't be repaired to your satisfaction, or would it be replaced, whatever the burden of proof would be on him to show that. So the other things that were in the packet that he described, and he took some pictures and sent them around, a couple of those houses has been to the Historic District Commission. One of the houses I know was replaced long ago, but he's got pictures of his house here, and he's showing the exterior elevations for it. So perhaps he might be able to articulate a little bit better as to what the pictures are actually showing. So with that, I'm available for any questions you might have, Mr. Chair and the Commission, or I'm sure they are as well, so.
But I don't think he had a chance to finish.
He said he was done, and then,
Okay, that's fine.
so, but he certainly can answer any questions you all
But
might.
now the pictures, is this the house that we're talking about?
It is.
Okay. This is before, or this?
Correct.
Oh,
Before
this
the
is
replacement.
before, okay.
Well, Jeff, do you have any other questions? We can just go
No,
around the.
That's fine.
Huh?
Do you have here which windows are already being replaced?
There's, the complete job entailed the replacement of 19 windows, and we have 4 remaining to do, so 15 have been replaced already.
These are-
On which elevation?
Which one's, John?
They've all been replaced. If I took pictures of them today, what I had to do, but I don't know if I'm.
He's the homeowner.
Yeah.
You can, if you'd like, we can pass those around.
Good evening, yeah, thank you.
And then,
John Neff, I live
then ultimately, I've got to get these back when these are done with my,
But yeah, all the windows were replaced. They're all inserted, so they didn't pull the permit. Shame on them. There's only those 4 left. Foamed around the outside, were just leaking air on the inside. They're still shimmed. So I had to put plastic up, used an actual stapler when it was 1 degree with 40 degrees below. My kids are homesick. It's like I'm having to do this all outside. And it's like, they're already done. Aesthetically, they look the same. And I went the high end. There's like Marvin, Pella, Anderson. I wasn't doing wall side windows, which are next door to me. But I think they're probably grandfathered in. But still, it's like, I don't know what to do at this point because it's seeping air in. I'm foaming all on the inside, so all the holidays, they were not pleasant at the end of the year, you know? They had like less than 2 hours left to case them in, to be finished with it, after they spent 4 days there, in and out of my house, and it was pretty much a cluster, having to move things around. I'm just trying to make it better, for the neighborhood. And the other ones were black mold on the inside. I haven't been able to open them up in 12 years. They were falling off literally, and the old glass is a hazard to my little kids that go to Burton. I mean, one hit one and it's not shatterproof. Or tempered glass, which these are, and they measured them twice, came out to make sure they fit. All the casings are on the inside. They're literally replacement, except for the outside, which were aluminum on the outside. But everything is intact. Even the old molding that's been there since 1950 is still intact around it. So they fit perfectly in there. But, I mean, they're almost done, and it's a shame that this had to happen, and I'm getting the brunt of it because of all the other stuff. Really appreciate your time looking at it.
Yeah, you'll need to give us a
Can I-
moment while we pass
Yeah.
this around.
Sure.
Can I have no, another question. Do you have the dimension of the original window? I'm not
They
talking
have
about
all
the, like
dimensions
the
in-
framing.
You can talk to that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the measure, so this was an insert replacement. I don't, you guys maybe not in the window business, but what that means is the old window frame was left intact. That holds the sashes. On an insert replacement, what we do is we take out the original sash, that's the part that holds the glass. We take out any balancers that are in the jambs, and then we size a window to fit exactly inside the existing frame of the original window. So while I don't have the exact measurements of the existing window opening, I could provide the dimensions of the new window that went into said openings.
I mean, this is the biggest investment of my life next to buying a house. I mean, windows are not cheap, especially when you go higher end.
Well, I've replaced my windows, so I know.
I didn't want to. Everybody's been telling me to replace them for 10 years, but they were, you can see some of the pictures, and that's the good ones, I think.
Well, that's not, I have to say, that's not the issue for the Historic
Yes,
District Commission, so. Do you have any other questions, Michal?
I'm just wondering if we can figure out the dimension of the profile in order to compare it for the new one. I don't know if we- So there's any existing window that was left?
So all the windows, they're all replaced, technically. The last few are foamed in, and I had
No,
to caulk the inside because it was just gaping wind. And then when it hit 40 miles an hour that hits the side of that house, it would have been better if it was the back, but the front just rushes the air in.
So no existing, no even one existing?
No,
Okay.
they were, like I said, they were about 2 hours out from just casing it in. And then the shims are still in there, so it's not actually even. So, but it's foam, but not really well. And I'm right on Woodward, so it's noisy as all get out with that back window.
Mr. Chair, just if I could maybe help out here, I think what she's asking is, and I think what I'm getting you is, these windows are put in, they're sash pack windows, right?
Not quite a sash pack,
but close.
but close.
So the window itself is going to be a little bit smaller because it's fitting in an area that is already defined rather than fitting in between the rough frame. So their glazing area, I guess what you're getting at, is the glazing area the same as what you took out
It would be impossible to be identical.
with the sash pack
Correct.
window?
Yes.
So the window, the glazing area is smaller. So
Yes.
are the mutton bars, are the muttons that are in the windows 5/8, 7/8?
There are no mutton bars in the front.
Okay,
Yes.
but, so there were none in the old window either then, correct? Those lines that are going across?
Those are, they appear to be true divided lights.
Okay, so in a TDL, that's gonna be a little bit different. So are those 5/8 spacing, or are they 7/8 in the old? And then what are the ones that you're putting?
The current windows that Mr. Neff purchased and we installed do not have any type of simulated divided light.
Okay, so they're not an SDL, so
Correct.
basically they're not using that, so they're different in that respect.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the rails and stiles, are those 2 1/4, 2 3/4?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
Is that where you were going, Hal, with, yeah, okay. So they don't have that information.
Yeah, I just did the single pane, same thing, where I can open them. I mean, literally, I could open maybe 2 windows in my home. Most of them were just shut or falling off, and you can see the black mold in there. Like, I don't know how to live like that, to be honest.
Well, there's,
Because aesthetically, it looks the same, but then we get into the minor details about what it is, but they're all in. And it's like, now my wife can actually see out, and the kids can see, like, outside.
but I should allow my fellow members of the commission to ask questions. I only want to interject at this point that if you had come to the commission first with a proposal, we would have pointed out all of the ways that you could meet the requirements without spending any more money.
Well, I wish.
And
I went to the window company to pull the permit
And-
and all this good stuff.
right.
See what happened.
But I don't think anybody's questioning the fact that the original windows might have been deficient and had to be replaced. That, I don't see that as being actually a big point of, disputed discussion. I mean, sometimes they can be repaired, but assuming that what you're saying is absolutely true, still, there's better and worse ways to do this.
Because I know some
but-
of the pictures indicate too, like literally next door, they were white and now they're black. I don't know if they came to commission, I'm not calling my neighbors.
That one did.
But it's like, but they're totally different aesthetically. These are all white on white, look great, and then the neighbors like different color windows and wall side windows next to me. If we're looking for like true look of the historic look,
Right.
like, it's not fitting.
Right. Well, let's continue. Robert?
Hank, have you checked if we have the original blueprints?
No, and part of the reason is because I can see what this is in the photos.
I too can see what this is. I would like to just be able to substantiate what the drawings, what the original drawings called for. I don't think that these windows in any way are compliant with the historic district standards. And the new ones certainly don't complement the house in any manner whatsoever. Clearly, it's a mid-century modern style and design house, and these windows are perfectly appropriate for that period and style. And the new ones are pretty much as basic, generic, lick and schmear windows you can get. They are style-free, styleless, and speak to absolutely no era at all, and absolutely zero design aesthetic. I don't think the horse is dead. I want to know how this happened.
Yeah, and to be perfectly candid, it was a clerical error. In where we're at with really all trade businesses and goes beyond the home services industry is lead times. And so so like this job, took us 14 weeks to get in. When a lot of cities and municipalities, their work permit expires in a certain time, sometimes less than the time that we would pretty much usually pull permits. So our previous procedure would be, we contract a job, We get the approval, once we apply for a permit, the historical, yes, all of that would have been taking place. But now with the expiration possibility on work orders or permits, even before we get the material in, we basically implemented a delay in pulling the permit closer to when the job starts, and frankly, it just got missed. I mean, we're a fifth-generation owned company, and we do a lot of work in historical districts, and this one just got missed.
Yeah, no one knew that there was no permit pulled.
I don't know on that.
Okay.
Steve?
On the south side of the house, I see there's like a bump out. I don't know if it's like in a kitchen area or something.
It's a garden window. That
Was that replaced also, or is that?
We did not touch that. That was there before we did anything with it. We did not install that garden window. That was there prior.
Well, I can see that the windows are of not the same style. Hank, is this like a contributing resource? Or-
It was listed as a contributing resource.
Which one are you, which page?
I was just looking at the photographs in here that show, well, two photographs. One that shows the front of the house.
Yes.
And we see like horizontal dividers.
Mhm.
And I look at one from the inside of the house, and I see a horizontal divider in there. And then the only pictures I think that we have of any new windows installed are these that I can see over here, which don't show any of those attributes. And I'm also confused about what gets replaced on these. I mean, I have to tell you, this looks horrid. I mean, what sort of molding gets put back up here? Or
So I haven't seen that.
these,
Those are
I took
yours.
those
He took
today,
those.
yeah.
what's gonna be done to this?
The process of finishing that would be, any exposed wood from the original frame or original brick mold would be clad in the field with aluminum to match the window. In this case, it would be.
So what would, there's a new window obviously in here, I can see it. I can see some foam or whatever. But what else gets done to this before your company would typically leave this site?
Right, and that's what I just said. The existing wood frame of the original window, as well as any brick mold, would be covered in the field, so we would bend or fabricate a custom clad to go over that, made of aluminum.
So we don't know what that is gonna be proposed to look like either at this point, and that's not completed at this
Well,
stage.
that's all in except for those 4 windows. So you have, like.
Is there a picture in here that shows, is there a picture in our packet that shows what a finished window looks like? From the
They haven't
outside?
finished any on this house, but there's a couple things. Typically what would happen is they would wrap the edges that are missing after they foam the window to make sure that the insulation value is there. They would either put a brick mold or a scab around the outside, and then they would wrap the coil stock around that. That would constitute the finished window, and then they would caulk where the coil stock meets the brick. That would be typically how this would be.
So this, what we're seeing in here, the remnants of the old wood is gonna be covered in some sort of aluminum.
That is
in essence.
correct.
We don't really know exactly what that'll look like, but it's gonna cover.
Well, it'll be clad, other than it'll be clad, we don't have any dimensions or anything.
Yeah, all the old ones were aluminum on the outside too. You could probably see one at the top, what it looks like maybe.
You said that some of the windows are already completely installed. Do you have a picture of one of those?
I do not.
Are you a licensed, builder or remodeler?
So me personally, I'm not. I'm a licensed salesperson underneath the builder, Paul Wendell, who applied for the permit. Paul had a family event that he couldn't be here tonight, and so.
Is he permitted to pull permits? Is he
Yes.
licensed in the state to
Yes.
do this sort of work?
These were only one of 3 certified Marvin installers. They're certified to install the Marvin windows, that's why I got them. Even the one here on the corner is not certified to install Marvin.
I was just curious if the company that you work for is authorized and licensed to pull permits and perform work. I just didn't know the answer to that. I mean, there might be a reason why they didn't have a permit, and I just need to,
We do
Explore that.
250 to 300 jobs a year. We pull permits typically, really every time a municipality requires one. Like I said, there's no sugarcoating it, it just got missed. If we were trying to hide from doing the work unpermitted, we probably showed up on a Saturday or Sunday. I'm just being as honest as I can about it. That's what happened.
I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are these photographs that are in the packet, those are what the windows look like before
Correct.
they're moved? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that there are, I would say, essentially three issues. So one is the material. And the Historic District Commission sees lots of requests for window replacement. And of course, there are a variety of materials that can be used, and we've certainly seen somewhere it's like a wood, it's an imitation wood, it's a synthetic material. They're in their various ways to replicate that. One of the issues that we look at in that is, so there's material. And the second one is the design of the window framing such that the actual opening, meaning the glass part, replicates what was there originally. There can be slight variations in the wood framing, but the glass part remains the same, so that you're not making the glass part smaller. You know, when you see,
I think it's technically bigger, the glass, the way that they frame it in, that's why I got them. It actually gives me probably a little more visual.
yeah, but the reason I'm saying that is that's we're getting some of the questions you're getting have to do with that. And then the third, which is probably the most obviously important, at least for people who are looking at windows from a question of historic preservation, is the design of the windows, certain design features. So in the case of the windows in your house, the original windows, they all had stiles running through them horizontal. You know, they're particularly visible in the windows that face the street. And you know, in terms of the guidelines that we have from the Department of Interior, that historic district commissions all over the country follow the same basic core principles. What you see facing a street is like extremely important. And it's most visible. I mean, all of the windows in your house had these stiles separating each part of the sash. And it looks, I'm guessing that none of those were replaced, correct, in all of the windows. They're just a single pane top, single pane on the
No
bottom.
simulation of a divided light in the new windows.
Okay. You know, and that's an issue. I mean, if it had come before, we would have asked you to do that.
Right.
Not a big deal, you know, but it would have maintained what Robert was referring to in terms of that mid-century modern look, because that horizontal, and you see it actually in the brick, you know, in the second floor, the brick running across the facade of your house. You've got those long horizontal lines running through. That's a kind of typical mid-century modern move. And it's, you know, really a delightful feature in the houses that we have it. And yours happens to be a good example of that. So by eliminating those horizontal lines that were in the windows, you're actually stripping out an important design feature of the house. I see that as a real question. For me personally, the area where it's most visible are the living room window, or the windows. I imagine one's on the living room, one may be a dining room, but they're facing the street, you know.
Picture window where you can see out.
Yeah.
We'll have to divide it, so
And you can-
it's aesthetically right.
Yeah.
It's tough to see out, yeah.
Yeah, and you can see how those lines, they pick up the detailing along the corners of the front of your house, those lines across the top floor, you know, the second story and so forth. So it's, you know, an important design feature. I think the question here is, you know, how to proceed. In some ways, you're presenting us with a fait accompli, and I don't know if there's, from a technical standpoint, you're the window expert, is there any remediation? Is there a way, let's say, at least if we're just talking about the facade,
Yeah.
what could we do to kind of get ourselves closer to what it should look like?
What I could do, or what we could do, is we could order new sashes and jam liners for the new windows and get them built with simulated divided lights. And in that case, it would be a 7/8 inch simulated divided light.
How long does that take?
Well, no, no,
ridiculous to have to live like that
No,
right now.
what we would, and he's talking about in particular with the ones in the front. They would just, they're virtually finished, right? The ones in the front?
Right.
Yeah.
But with all the foam that I stuck in there and the plastic that I had to.
Right. But as far as from the window or the aesthetic of the window, we could, and to your question, it would take 4 months for the new sashes to come in. But
Yes, Hank.
leave the original sashes in there until the new ones obviously come in. You know, I guess what Mr. Neff is, obviously, if we could go in and at least get them completed as is with a plan to improve the facade of the front, I mean, obviously, you know, that that's doable.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think that one of the options would be is that, if the concern is primarily the streetscape and primarily what you see from the front, that if he can come and get different replacement sashes with the horizontal lines that match what they have here for the front windows, because they do very closely relate to the brick. And they do relate to the front of part of the structure and the squareness of the whole things, the rectangular lines and that, make a difference. If he could do that, you could do something like authorize him to go ahead and finish the install on these, order the other, and pop out the front windows and put the new front sash packs in
When they're done.
with the horizontal lines in a 4-month period. At that point in time, if you would grant this with a notice, with a certificate of appropriateness to go ahead and do that, then we would do that. We would hold the job open and hold the bond, hold, you know, any fees that we would have with that until the job would be completed. But they would have to do that.
But with no additional cost to the homeowner because the permit was failed, and if the permit had been pulled, you would have been going through the same exercise and known ahead of time, and you could have added whatever the costs are. But at this point, it would be with no additional cost to the homeowner. Sure.
I get that, I already put enough money down. It's like, oh,
Yeah, I mean,
Well, the question always becomes, who pays?
yes,
and so-
we're fully prepared to pay any,
Yeah.
you know, if there's fines in situations like this that would typically be levied upon a homeowner, you know, Window Pro certainly will, you know, take that responsibility.
We only do public executions in Huntington Woods.
Okay.
We're a
Well,
friendly
it's-
city.
Yeah, I got it.
At this point, before we continue on to board discussion, I'd like to see if we have any, I see some visitors here to see if we have any public comments. You have to come up here. Yeah.
She's looking for moral support. This is your.
Barb Levin at 26668 York, a few doors down. I just want to say, we totally support this family. We have replacement windows, but it was long done before the Historic Commission. And there are tons of houses right around us that have replacement windows. That was done before the Historic Commission. I also don't think, and this is a realtor thing, that realtors are telling people, I don't know if you knew when you were buying your house that it's in the historic district. They're not letting these people know this. And then they get a surprise. Granted, I'm going to say shame on them for not pulling the permit. Obviously, we wouldn't be here today. But please let these people live their lives, fix these windows, and then go back and do what needs to be done 4 months from now. Nobody needs to live that way. I was so worried about them when it was so windy and sub-zero weather, thinking, oh, my goodness, you know, just let them complete the job and then do what you need to do to make it compliant. And in the future, it would be wonderful if realtors did let these people know that it is in the historic district, because they are not disclosing that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think it's time for some discussion. Do we have any
I have
further?
one more question.
Please.
Has a permit yet been pulled?
Permit's been applied for, but it has not been granted because I need an action from the part of the HDC in order to do that.
Got it.
comment?
Yes.
The district that you're in started really and got platted around almost 100 years ago. And I think it was 1916. 1920s, 1930s, we started getting a lot of growth there. And the area was, part of it at least, was copied after Huntingdon, England. In 2004, because there were problems like this occurring, we spent about a year studying the 108 homes out of 2,428, about 5%, that are in the historic district, because they have a unique character that was famous for that, and we tried to retain that. One of the quirks that everyone likes to change the windows, so I can put this on the outside and this on the inside, but the real standard in a historic district is the decision process for selecting replacement windows should not begin with the survey of contemporary window products which are available as replacement, but should begin with a look at the windows which are being replaced, and you're really supposed to try and repair the wood. If you can't do it, then you want to virtually duplicate it. People don't say that. And that gives us some ideas of what we can do going forward. But it really becomes difficult because, as was pointed out, your house has lines in the front. That is intentional. It is unique. You drive where I live, you're not going to see that. Every house is brick, but it's not going to have the design and style. The minute you start breaking that down, and everybody else does, the historic district loses its character. We brag about it. It is unique. You paid through the nose to move in, and that has occurred really for almost 100 years. You go back and read the Detroit Times in the 1920s, and they were talking about the historic district. You look at the architects. You have Yamasaki. You have a whole bunch of other architects. You don't find that in virtually the rest of the city.
No, I love that about it. We have Albert Kahn across
Oh,
the
yeah.
street, but then
Yeah.
I have brick that's tilted.
Yeah.
I know it's a 1950
And-
home, but then on Henry, that's why I just wondered about the district itself, because you have these 1927 homes that are gorgeous, but they're not in the district. And
Well,
I always
what they-
wonder about that, like, they could do anything, or.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, you
Which
move.
is crazy, because they're even nicer.
Well, I was on the historic, I was a commissioner and also on the study committee. And we really wanted to go a larger area. Now, if you lived in the historic district and all of a sudden the government was going to tell you what you're going to do going forward, there was sheer panic. I knocked on virtually every single door to explain what the goals were, and not that we were really trying to tell them to move or you couldn't do anything. Can I cut down the tree? Is the tree historic?
Well, mine is, because it still has barbed wire wraps around it, you
Oh,
can see. It's like
okay,
the biggest maple on it. The road is different because of it. I love that. I
But,
get it, yeah.
yeah, but I mean, the reality is that the rules are different. And contractors know that. If there was a mistake, it's not your fault. It's a contractor. Whomever was the licensee is trained in that. That's why they have a license. So it's a two-way street. When a builder comes in, they usually will check with Hank. Hank has a background in building He's not some academic.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry about that.
We do refer to him as Professor Barry, however. I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
One more question.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, forgot your name? Tim. Do you have different frame, the one that goes and close? Because I'm looking at the new one, I found there's one window, and the old one, and the old one had a little bit of like, what's the word? It's like a going to the front and the back. I forgot the, like, see this bump out, the frame?
Oh, it protrudes a little bit closer to the
Yes.
window, yeah.
Yes. Do you have something similar that can?
I don't know which, for reference, which window or which page number you're looking at.
So actually, Michal is comparing the photographs that Mr. Neff provided with the original.
Yeah,
in
you
the-
can see it's
Well, those were all, by the way,
five.
those were all
What is
cased with
this?
aluminum. That wood is exposed, so that's why I was worried too. I have all this exposure to the elements where it was all encased with aluminum. That's the whole framing or coil as Hank talks about.
Well, I think probably what happened is that a previous homeowner put storm windows and screens over the original windows, the original wood. So the aluminum you're referring to was an add-on, probably to insulate the house and provide screens and so forth. And there may have been some aluminum that was put around the windows at that time. That's a very common kind of treatment. But if you took all of that off, you would have exposed the original windows, and then that would look
For a
different.
long time, I'll tell you that.
Oh, no, I know.
The installer says it was.
No, I know. When I bought my house in 1989, it had those on there, and it was put on a long time before that. I know that. But what I'm trying to say is that was not original.
Okay,
That's the only point I'm trying to make.
all right.
So replicating that doesn't bring you closer to the historical look of the house. What you do is replicating something that was done 30, 40 years ago, whenever.
Typically,
You're
there would have
talking
been a
about
brick
this or?
mold. And the brick mold would have had a
Yeah,
pattern,
yeah,
and that may have been what was covered
So that's
originally.
the-
And then when
the
they added the
white
storm
I think that
windows,
was.
they may have added that onto it. But originally, there would have been a brick mold.
Right.
So, and that's long since gone from this.
It's been long gone because the lady that was there before
See,
me.
this
was
is
there in the
aluminum,
90s,
this
and I
is-
think she was the original owner.
Put over it.
Yeah, it could be.
You know, so the
It-
original
yeah.
storage windows underneath. That's why it's so hard to see.
It's not unusual when they put storm windows on to do that. That could have
So
been done in the
you're saying this
80s.
intrusion is
You
not?
So I
know,
know her
Original.
sister lived down the
So
street.
he doesn't need to.
And they
Yeah.
redid the whole
Okay.
house.
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
even
the
easier to
picture
see
window
here.
in front, and that's
Yeah.
definitely not original.
Sticking
I-
out.
So I'm going through the
But that's
same
an
issue that I
aluminum.
know just happened.
And it was
a
like a
few years
storm
ago.
right.
Okay.
I think,
Put over it.
um,
You know, the
Because
window
that
screen
definitely
slide
was,
them down within
we
that
have to
aluminum
go
tray.
look at the
that's
time
screwed onto
frame.
the front of it.
well, we're not, because that,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that ships out of the
I
harbor.
know.
Mr. Chair, if I could just offer a suggestion or to move towards closer to a motion or at least a discussion point and see where you're at with that. What you may want to do is you may want to go ahead, and again, this is up to you, you may want to go ahead and move for the approval of the installation of the windows with the temporary basis on the front, providing that they come in with a window, and you may even want to do this, let them install this, let them come back to the next meeting with a sample of what it is that they propose to do to make this right on the front of the house at least, and you can see what it is, they can provide you with dimensions at that point, but for the time being, at least Mr. Neff can get the windows in and the house, airtight for that, with the understanding that they'll come in and do that. At that point in time, I'll hold the permit approval in abeyance until the HDC approves the window that would go in on the front.
So is the meeting, is it tabled then, or do we just postpone a decision?
Well, you wouldn't, you have to have some form of action to allow them to finish installing the windows, so you would move to approve with the codicil that the front windows to be replaced and to come back for the front windows in the February meeting so that they can do that, and they get it on order, so even if they order it in February, still the end of May, they're putting in the rest of the windows, and they're all done, assuming that the window that they're putting in is at a minimum satisfactory. So that's kind of where your conversation might want to start. And that way you have at least some kind of assurance that the front windows will be at least linear and matching.
I have a question for you, because I'm kind of on the same page as you, Hank. I think there's a policy question here we need to sort out first, but are you able with these kinds of windows to do them with the style so that they're actually visible on the outside of the glass? Not, in other words, they're, the different kinds.
Yes, yeah. And that's what.
A true divided light.
Yeah, a true divided light.
Nobody does well, you can do true divided lights, but they're so energy inefficient, nobody does them. So you do that via a simulated divided light, whereas you put
Right.
exposed rail on the exterior, and typically it'll be on the interior as well.
Right.
Simulate that true divided.
Okay, that's right. That's the SDL, right?
Correct.
Right, okay. Well, I think what I'd like for the commission to do is sort of break this down into pieces.
Okay.
And I want to focus a little bit on what we would like to see as the end result. My thinking is, and I'm just being a pragmatist, that if we could have the look of the original windows that face the street on the second and first floors replicate what was originally in the house, as we see it in the photograph, that to a large extent, I think, would satisfy our needs. The left side of the house is not so visible, and in the right side of the house is already not the way it was originally because we have that little garden, or whatever they call it, little extended garden windows sticking out of it. Anyway, so I'm tend to be a little concerned with that. So I think if we could agree to prioritize that, meaning the street side, then we have, I think, a kind of principle to work with. And then we can go through the other pieces that Hank was talking about. So is there a consensus on that? Would that be agreeable to everybody?
And the other thing is, because of a failure to pull the original permit, that the additional expense be with the contractor as opposed to the resident.
I don't think we are legally
But I
in a position.
would like it to show in the commentary.
Okay,
Tim agreed to that. Tim has already agreed to doing that.
okay.
He said he would take that. But I take exception to something you just said.
Okay.
Marvin Windows' own website proudly exclaims they're authentic and divided lights, especially for historic window restoration.
And I said sometimes you can do that, but they're
Yes.
incredibly inefficient.
So-
I can say that, yeah.
Well, actually, they're not, but I'm not going to argue with you. Marvin's site itself touts what a wonderful product this is. So divided lights are possible for Mr. Neff's house. And that's what was originally there. And I think, Hank, if the city could provide Tim with copies of the original drawings, if we have them in the vault, that would be a tremendous asset.
We
to
can
him
certainly
getting the
show them to
product.
him if they exist.
Right.
He can take photos of them if
You
he
can get
wants
the
to
dimensions,
have copies,
the whole.
to the extent they have it. A lot of
Right.
times, again, I'm going to gather that these prints won't be like the Saranen prints that have the dimensions of the electric cover plates on them, but they may have some rail and style components or types of windows listed. So to the extent that that's helpful, that's fine. That would provide an excellent blueprint for Tim to go ahead and do his mock-ups.
I think we're ready for a motion. Does anybody want to try and craft one? I can do it as chair, can't I?
You can make a motion.
Okay, I'll make the
Craft a
motion.
motion and ask if anybody would care to move that motion.
That's exactly right. I'm going to build the motion, and somebody's going to have to move it. I move that Mr. Neff be given a permit to complete the existing work to the extent that it provides the insulation that's necessary, pardon?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Approval. You can't give them permit.
Oh, approval, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, that we give a certificate of approval for the completion of the work to the extent that the windows are properly insulated to get you through the winter, with the following codicils, I guess you could say. One would be that the windows facing Hendry be redone, whatever that means, to replicate the styles in the kind of standard SDL permit, both on the second floor and on the first floor. That
You're saying
It's,
SEL,
SDL,
simulate it, when they can,
Yeah.
they can also do a true divided, which is what was in place.
okay. Well, should we could,
Is one of the requirements of the historical district to have true divided lights, or is SDLs, is that on the list of approved? I don't know if you know exactly, I don't know if you know exactly. I know in other historical districts, we do simulated divided lights all the time. And frankly, it's one of the windows that are allowed is a Marvin Ultimate window that's wood interior with an aluminum clad exterior, which is not a wood exterior. So,
but the window component itself is wood, and it's just clad with aluminum.
Correct.
That happens all the time, but the thing is that wood tends to be stronger than either the vinyl or the fiberglass, and as a result, the components, rails, stiles, and muntin bars are typically a little bit thinner because they can be, and that increases the glazing area. So that's where the historic aspect of it comes in. I think that if you want it to be simulated divided lights, then it has to be proposed as simulated divided lights. There is no list of approved windows where I can go and you can say, okay, well, Anderson 100s are approved, Anderson 400s are not. That doesn't exist for us. So the component choice would be, A, what you're asking for, B, what they're going to give you. So it'd be somewhere in between. If they're saying that the only thing that they'll do simulated divided lights and allow you to have a simulated with TDLs, and I do agree with you, TDLs are not really done anymore. They're available, but they're not really done anymore. But with the look or whatever for the SDL to match the existing, that would be up to the HDC to craft an emotion for that and approve that. If they're not willing to do that, they want you to do a true divided light as available in the Marvin catalog, then that would be something which they would give you. Again, what they're discussing is doing this for the front four windows.
I understand.
Jeff, I'm fine with the SDL.
Can we leave the decision for when we'll see the windows, and maybe we can see comparison of the two of them?
What you can do is you can make a motion to allow the installation of all the windows, and with the understanding that the four windows on the front of the house will be revisited at the February meeting. And at that point in time, we'll issue a permit for only those windows and not the four front windows. So like we would do that. If you say, put all the rest of the windows in, the other three sides are good, we understand the problems, we understand this, the one side's not all set up anyway, you can do that. You can give them a certificate of appropriacy, you can do those windows, and they're done with that. The front will be held in abeyance until they come back with a window that would be appropriate to that particular style. And we would not close out the permit.
okay. Shall I start again? Or would somebody else like to take a run at it? I'll take another crack at it.
We believe.
You were doing well.
I was doing well until I ran aground. Okay, so we move to grant a certificate of approval for the completion of the windows on the house, provided that we're presented with a new plan for the windows that are facing Hendry Avenue,
York.
York. I don't know why I keep saying Hendry. York Road at the February meeting. We encourage you to see with Hank if there are blueprints that you can consult that might have some specs about the stiles and rails. And assuming that information is not available, that you'll proceed with a plan that replicates as closely as possible what we see in the photograph of the house as it originally showed. And at that point, we will revisit the approval for the four windows that are facing York Road. And this would, and the condition that we will be looking at, the standard that we'll be looking at would be number 5 in the Department of Interior guidelines that specify the distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will be preserved. Number 6, that the deteriorated historic features will be repaired rather than replaced, or if not, the new feature will match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible materials. So, is that sufficient, Hank?
If somebody moves it, it is.
Yes. So, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Opposed. I would like to see standard number 2 added. The historic character of a property will be retained and preserved.
Just for clarification, Mr. Chair, that motion passed.
Yeah. You'd have to enter a whole new motion, I think.
The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided.
I think that horse is out of the barn.
Yeah, I think what you have is already passed, so
Right.
that's
I
already
understand.
done. We already have, the only thing left is for Tim and I to make a plan as to, what to get together on this.
Now,
What Robert is saying is actually correct, in that standard number 2 is important. So if he wants to reference it, just in relationship to this particular project, he certainly could do that and just put it on the record, but it wouldn't be part of the motion.
It should be part of the record. Yeah, absolutely.
Then
How do I do that?
you just say you'd like to make just a comment on it. The chair would allow you to make a comment, and you would make your comment as to this standard number 2.
Sure, I'd like to make a comment.
Mr.
My
Lebo, you
comment.
are recognized for a comment.
Thank you. My comment is that standard number 2 is crucial in conjunction with number 5 and number 6 is what we noted, correct?
Yes.
And that all, if the contractor is willing and the homeowner is willing, that number 2 should be observed also. It actually goes hand in hand with the others. That's it, I'm done with mine.
Okay. And then we also have the observation from the commission that it's the sense of the commission that under the circumstances regarding the failure to pull a permit in a timely fashion, that any additional costs in terms of meeting the requirements of the Historic District Commission be borne by the contractor rather than the homeowner. And I believe with that, we're done with this case.
Tim, if you want to hang for a minute. Mr. Chair, that's all that I have for you this evening.
I have a question that Robert and I were discussing a little bit before, that is actually apropos of one of the public comments that we received concerning realtors. And the question is, how are homeowners nowadays informed about whether or not their houses are in the historic district?
Hopefully, the real estate agents would be telling them. I don't know why they're not. In this particular case, they may have cost him a lot of money in the respect that this project, if it was done differently, could have been availed themselves of historic tax credits. And the tax credit program is back, so I mean, there could have been thousands of dollars available to Mr. Neff that he wasn't made aware of. One, because he didn't know he was in a historic district, or at least that's the assumption. And two, because if they would have come in for a permit, they would have been told at the time that they got a permit that is this an HTC project? And at that point in time, suggestions would have been made for compliance for that. The only other thing that we can do is, we can send out, we can come up with some verbiage and put like a letter together to the realtors, stating that if you are listing or selling a property in the historic district, it'd be a good idea to advise your clients of the benefits of the historic district, such as the HTCs and other benefits that are in the historic district, but at bare minimum, they should tell them. We know here.
Yeah.
So anybody that comes in and asks for a permit or asks for construction on a house, the first thing we ask for is the address. And at that point in time, our complete BSNA software system flags historic properties.
I wonder if there is, whether it would even be possible, and I ask this question, I should say, because the real estate industry has changed so much. A house within a historic district could be sold by a realtor in Washington, for all we know. I mean, they're networking and just all this crazy stuff is going on. I wonder if it's a part of the process by which I assume the city clerk is notified when a property changes hands and there's a new person responsible for paying property taxes in a given.
There's a property transfer affidavit that sometimes comes in, sometimes they're done at the county. So not every property transfer affidavit comes into this office.
Oh, so you don't even know.
Most times we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we find out months later from the county when the PRE comes in, which would be the principal residence exemption, that we would take a look at it. But that would be the only other time that we would know it.
Yeah.
Could there be any signage that would be put on, city property that would say, denote areas as historic districts?
Right now, I'm looking at new street signs that have like historic district toppers, and we're looking for grant funding to see if we can possibly make something like that happen.
Talk to the men's club.
So,
Could we do an annual letter to the 108 homeowners telling them, these are the requirements, and at the same time, these are the tax advantages that you might
We could.
be able. It would be nice, it's not expensive, it virtually could be, once developed,
that would be, you got 108 homes, you're not looking at $1.5 million of money to do
No.
that at all.
Jeff, in the past, we've discussed not doing a general letter like that once a year, but in the city newsletter, in every edition, a note about the historic district.
but
A simple little thing that goes,
Robert, the problem becomes the following.
people don't
I
read it.
don't know very often if I'm in the historic district.
Right. That's why,
There's
Right,
no
so
letter.
you include that basic information. This is the historic district, a little map. And this is what is happening within the historic district now.
There's nothing
Simple
saying
things.
you can't do both.
I'm sorry?
There's nothing saying you can't do both.
Right, of course.
I just think it would be helpful, especially because there can be tax advantages. And then neither side, the contractor nor the homeowner, gets in trouble because both are going to be saying, did you? It just makes it easier. And it's not a huge number of homes.
Not at all.
It's 108.
And I had to go door to door.
We may have walked with you. Some of us may have walked with you when you did that.
Just think how young you were then.
Oh,
I
dear
was
God.
much younger.
Again, okay,
So, you know
so
what, this all comes to the single point of, we need to have better outreach. We need to be able to reach out to the historic
Multiple.
district and the city.
Multiple ways, yeah.
Yes, yeah, we should be doing
Well,
more
those
than
two-
meeting
those-
once a month for
yeah.
2 hours, and
And you
Going
need,
for this.
you need bragging rights also,
we do.
because that's an amazing district. And you go back and you read this stuff, and they're talking about it, really almost 100 years ago.
Mr. Chair, you're still on the record at this point. Did you want to adjourn and then continue the conversation, or did you?
Well, I wanted to just ask you a question about if we wanted to pursue these two ideas, one of having an item in the Huntington Woods newsletter and also maybe being more proactive in terms of sending, letters to homeowners. What's the
The
best way to-
letters is a no-brainer. I can do that this week.
Okay,
That's 108 homes, that's no problem.
okay. In the newsletter?
The newsletter, I'll have to find out the channels for that. And it may be that we want to devote a little bit of space and have like a little blurb or an article written about every house, or something like that. That can be flushed out. What I want to do is find out how I'm going to get us some reserved space in the newsletter, that's all.
Okay, yeah.
We could discuss that at the next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be
That's
great.
kind of cool. I mean, that's,
That would be.
That'd be great. Yeah, I think it would be, I think we could be a little bit more proactive that way. It would be good.
Hugely.
it certainly wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
That's it, so.
Do we have any other business?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
If not, may I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Not opposed.
It is almost 9:15, and our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.